Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. First thing I would point out about this beatitude is that notice the difference in the tense. Most of the other beatitudes have a future tense. Those who are, for instance, those who are peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Kind of, there's a now and future tense to it. But this one specifically, it's when you're being persecuted for righteousness' sake, yours is the kingdom of heaven. You can already claim that you are in the kingdom of heaven with Jesus, and that it is a present, active thing. The way I would try to summarize this whole beatitude and these two promises of Jesus is that when we accept Jesus' proclamation of a kingdom, that he is king and king of a kingdom that radically is different than the world's systems of power and control and sin, we'll probably face some measure of pushback when we claim, one, that we believe in and serve a king who was the historical person of Jesus, who died on a cross, and then we claim that he came back from the dead. People might think that we're crazy. When we value things that Jesus values, that's going to maybe be different and offensive to some people whenever we say that we hold to certain moral ethics that Jesus taught, and that we take those seriously and we let him be the master of our lives. When we advocate for the needs of the poor and marginalized and oppressed, and live in a way that challenges unjust power structures, that's naturally not going to be received well by a world of corrupt kingdoms. And so Jesus' example of this, though, I don't think we need a bigger example than the fact that because he claimed this kingdom, because he claimed to be the true king of the earth, he was put to death by corrupt kingdoms. The power structures of the Jewish religious system and those leaders that rejected Jesus, and the power system of Rome that Jesus died at the hands of. And so what can we as the king's people expect in the way that we live? If Jesus was persecuted for righteousness' sake, we shouldn't be surprised when it happens to us too. In fact, we should maybe be surprised if it's not happening, if we're not living in a way that at least raises an eyebrow, because it's different. We're called to be a different type of people. And yet, these are the promises that we can cling to, that ours is the kingdom of heaven, that when we live and suffer with Jesus, we are with him, and we can look forward to the reward that Jesus received. It says this in Romans 8:17, if we are children of God, we are also heirs, heirs of God and fellow heirs with the Messiah, as long as we suffer with him, so that we may also be glorified with him. And then in 2 Timothy 2:11 and 12, it says, if we die with him, we shall live with him. If we endure patiently, we shall reign with him. But if we deny him, he will deny us. If we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny his own self. We can know that when we are opposed, made fun of, left out, or even violently attacked for following Jesus, as some people are in the world, some believers that are killed for their faith, we can know that we are with Jesus, who also suffered and suffered first, and we are following him, and we will receive the same reward, which is that we will be raised with him again, and we will reign with him forever and ever, as it says in Revelation. And so that is what this beatitude is about.
Yeah, so even in light of that, our response is still worship. I'm always reminded by some simple words. It says saying yes to the Lord sometimes means saying no to the world. Our response to even when we're persecuted for righteousness is still worship. And I'm reminded about the song Yes I Will by Vertical Worship, and it serves to remind us of God's faithfulness towards us, and how even in the midst of hard times when we don't necessarily see God's goodness, and we may not see the bounty and the light that sometimes can be covered from our eyes, we can still be reminded that God is with us and that we can still give our yes to him. I always remember this line in the chorus. It says, yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy for all my days. Yes, I will. And sometimes even proclaiming that when we're in the valley as a statement of faith and a proclamation over our lives, it can speak that. It can become true over time. So as we go and we look over this beatitude, as we study it, as we look for truth in it, I hope that as we listen to this song and the rest of the songs in the playlist as well, that we would find truth in them, we'd find life in them, and that we'd be reminded of the Lord's goodness and kindness and His grace over us.